The morning sun illuminated Boston's famous Newbury Street, highlighting the elegant storefronts and the usual bustle of a weekday. Among the most traditional establishments was Wellington Books Antiques, a bookstore and antique shop that had operated in the same location for over 40 years. With its dark wooden shelves and the characteristic aroma of old books, it was a piece of a local history that resisted the growing digitization of commerce. Harold Wellington, 68, meticulously organized a new shipment of first editions that had arrived. Wearing his usual tweed vest over a well-pressed shirt, he represented the third generation of the Wellington family to run the business. His hands, marked by time, handled each book with the care of a passionate collector, but his countenance carried a concern that had been intensifying in recent months. "Good morning, Harold. How are sales this week?" asked Martha, his longtime assistant, as she hung her coat on the rack near the counter. Harold sighed deeply. "They aren't, Martha. They simply aren't." The bell on the door chimed, announcing a customer's arrival, a young man of approximately 25, wearing faded jeans, worn-out sneakers, and a basic t-shirt under a blazer that seemed too large for his slim body, entered the store. His eyes scanned the environment with genuine interest, but his appearance contrasted with the shop's usual clientele. "May I help you?" asked Harold, in a tone that revealed certain suspicion. "Just looking, for now," replied the young man, with an accent that betrayed his humbler origins. "This place is amazing. Do you have any Thoreau editions?" "Third shelf to the right, American literature section," Harold responded dryly, returning his attention to the books he was cataloging. The young man, whose name was Alex Rodriguez, browsed the shelves with the attentive gaze of someone who knew what he was looking for. Son of Mexican immigrants who had built a life in Boston, Alex had grown up between two worlds, the Latin community of East Boston and the academic world to which he had access thanks to a scholarship at Harvard, from which he had graduated just 3 years ago. While Alex examined the books, two well-dressed customers entered the store. Harold immediately abandoned his work and went to greet them with a warm smile. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitman, what a pleasure to see you again. The Dickens edition you ordered arrived just yesterday." Alex observed the change in Harold's behavior. He picked up a copy of Walden and approached the counter, where Martha attended to him with a polite smile. "Excellent choice," she commented. "First edition, although not in perfect condition." "It's perfect for me," Alex replied, taking out his card from his pocket. At this moment, Harold returned to the counter and, seeing the transaction in progress, intervened. "This copy is not for sale," he declared, taking the book from Martha's hands. "It's part of a reserved collection." "But there's no indication of that, Mr. Wellington," protested Martha, confused. "I just decided," replied Harold, staring at Alex with a cold look. "Perhaps you'll find something more suitable to your budget at the used bookstore 3 blocks from here." "Mr. Wellington!" Martha exclaimed, shocked. Alex maintained his composure despite the evident humiliation. "I understand. Thank you for your time." As he headed toward the door, Alex heard Harold comment to the Whitmans. "Some people don't understand that certain items have value beyond price." The bell chimed again as the door closed behind him. Outside, Alex took a deep breath, observing the old facade of the store. He took his phone from his pocket and dialed a number. "Rachel?" Alex speaking. "Yes, I just visited Wellington Books. The location is perfect and the inventory is exactly what we were looking for, but I think we'll face more resistance than we expected." "Yes, proceed with the offer as planned. I'll be at the office in 20 minutes to discuss the details." Alex took one last look at the store before walking down Newbury Street. Behind his unpretentious appearance was hidden the CEO of Rodriguez Ventures, an investment company that had grown exponentially in recent years, thanks to his vision of preserving traditional businesses by adapting them to new market realities. And Wellington Books and Antiques had just become his most personal project. The Rodriguez Ventures office occupied the 10th floor of a modern building in Boston's financial district. Through the large glass windows, one could contemplate the city's skyline and the distant harbour. Alex walked among the desks, greeting each of his 32 employees by name, as he made a point of doing every morning. "Good morning, boss." Rachel Chen, his operations director and friend from college days, waited for him in the meeting room. With her short hair and red-framed glasses, Rachel was known for her relentless efficiency and precise analyses. "How was the visit to the bookstore?" Alex reported the incident, trying to maintain a professional tone, but Rachel knew him too well. "He judged you by your appearance, didn't he?" she asked, adjusting her glasses. "As always," Alex replied, shrugging. "But it's not about me. That bookstore is a cultural treasure that's slowly dying. The numbers don't lie." Rachel projected onto the screen the financial information they had collected about Wellington Books and Antiques. The revenue lines showed a steady decline over the past 5 years, contrasting with the increasing real estate value of the area. "Harold is sinking," continued Rachel. "He has refused 3 offers from developers in the last 2 years. They want to demolish the building and construct another boutique hotel or designer store. And we want to preserve," completed Alex, analysing the numbers. "How much are we offering?" $1,200,000. Fair value for the property, considering we'll keep the business in operation, plus $200,000 for the inventory and name. Alex nodded, approving the proposal. "Send it by traditional mail. Harold seems like the type who values formalities." Meanwhile, at Wellington Books, Harold sat in his small office at the back of the store, facing another pile of bills to pay. Martha entered with 2 cups of tea, placing one in front of her boss. "You didn't need to be rude to that young man," she commented, sitting in the opposite chair. Harold sighed, removing his glasses and rubbing his tired eyes. "What difference does it make? He probably just wanted to take pictures for those social media platforms. No one his age really cares about books." "Or you didn't even give him a chance to prove otherwise," replied Martha. "And we need every customer, Harold." "You know that." Harold observed the small office with its walls covered by black and white photographs showing the store through the decades. His grandfather at the inauguration in 1936, his father expanding the business in the 60s, and himself, young and full of dreams, taking over in the 80s. "I don't know how much longer we can keep the doors open, Martha," he confessed, his voice breaking slightly. "The rent has increased again. People buy online now. And James ... He didn't complete the sentence, but he didn't need to. James, his only son, had opted for a career in finance in New York, making it clear he had no interest in taking over the family business. "Maybe it's time to consider the offers we've received," Martha gently suggested, "and let them transform decades of history into another expensive clothing store." "Never." Harold hit the table, resolute. "My grandfather built this place from nothing. He was a simple English immigrant with a love for books. I won't be the one to bury his legacy." The bell on the door interrupted the conversation. Martha went to attend, returning minutes later with a formal envelope. "Mail for you. Looks important." Harold opened the envelope carefully, and, as he read its contents, his expression changed. Surprise, confusion, and finally, indignation. "Another purchase offer," he said, throwing the letter on the table. "This time from a Rodriguez Ventures. Never heard of them." Martha picked up the letter, reading quickly. $1,400,000 is a lot of money, Harold. And they promised to keep the bookstore operating. "Everyone promises whatever is necessary until they get what they want," grumbled Harold. "Afterward, promises are forgotten. No, my answer remains no." That same night, while closing the store, Harold noticed a leak in the roof near the history shelves. Another expense he couldn't afford. As he left, he looked at the old sign of Wellington Books and Antiques, the neon lights blinking intermittently, as if symbolizing the precarious state of the business. Across the street, inside his modest Honda Civic, Alex was observing. He had returned to better understand the store's routine and its frequenters. In his lap, a worn copy of Walden that he had bought at the used bookstore Harold had suggested, far less special than the first edition he had tried to purchase. "You received our offer today, Mr. Wellington," Alex murmured to himself, watching the elderly man lock the store's door. "I hope you understand we're on the same side before it's too late." 3 days passed without a response from Harold. At Rodriguez Ventures, Alex met with his small cultural restoration team, a department created specifically for his historical business preservation projects. "We need a different approach," he concluded, after hearing Rachel's report about Wellington Books' increasingly precarious financial situation. "How about a more formal visit?" suggested Michael Torres, the team's literary collection assessment specialist. "I could go as a company representative. I have an adult face," he joked, pointing to his greying beard contrasting with his 38 years. Alex shook his head. "Number, I want to do this personally. There's something about that place. It's more than just a business to me." "Is it because of the books your father collected?" asked Rachel softly. Alex nodded. His father, Eduardo Rodriguez, had worked as a janitor at Harvard for years, taking advantage of every free moment to read and collect books, raising his children in the love of literature despite limited resources. "Wellington Books was the first real bookstore I visited when I was 12, explained Alex. "My father took me there after receiving his first bonus. I remember how Harold, younger at the time, looked at us suspiciously. My father just wanted to show me what a real book paradise looked like. And now you want to buy it," concluded Michael. "I want to save it," corrected Alex. "And maybe, in the process, prove something to myself." Decided, Alex opted for a more direct approach. The next morning, dressed formally in a well-tailored suit that highlighted his true professional position, he returned to Wellington Books and Antiques. The familiar bell announced his entrance. Martha was at the counter and looked at him with surprise, recognizing him immediately, despite the change in appearance. "Good morning," Alex greeted with a polite smile. "I'd like to speak with Mr. Wellington, please. My name is Alejandro Rodriguez from Rodriguez Ventures." Martha's eyes widened with recognition of the name. "Oh, of course. One moment." She disappeared into the back of the store, returning minutes later with a visibly irritated Harold. "So you're responsible for the letter," said Harold, his tone defensive. "My answer is no. It's not for sale." "Mr. Wellington, I understand your position, but I'd like to properly explain our proposal," Alex calmly responded. "Rodriguez Ventures is not a common developer. Our focus is preserving culturally significant businesses, adapting them for sustainability in today's market." Harold crossed his arms, skeptical. "And why should we believe that?" "Because I've been here before," Alex replied, his gaze finding the shelf where, years ago, his father had shown him a first edition of Jack London. "This place is personally important to me." Something in Alex's sincerity made Harold hesitate. Martha seized the opportunity. "Maybe we could at least hear what he has to say, Harold." Reluctantly, Harold agreed with a nod. 20 minutes, in my office." In the small back room, Alex presented in detail Rodriguez Ventures' plan. Keep Wellington Books in operation, preserving its unique character, but implementing strategies to make it financially viable. A website for online sales of rarities, literary events, partnerships with local schools and universities, and a small cafe in the underutilized second-floor space. "You would continue as the principal consultant for acquisitions and rarities assessments, if you wish," explained Alex. "Your experience is irreplaceable." Harold listened in silence, his face an impenetrable mask. When Alex finished, the old bookseller stood up and went to a shelf in the corner of the office, from which he retrieved a dusty book. "Do you know what this is?" he asked, extending the volume to Alex. Alex examined the book with reverent care. First edition of The Call of the Wild by Jack London, 1903. "Impressive," murmured Harold. "Most young people wouldn't even recognize the title, much less the edition." He made a significant pause. "You've been here before, haven't you? With an older man, many years ago." Surprise crossed Alex's face. "Yes, my father," Eduardo Rodriguez. He worked as a janitor at Harvard. Harold nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. I remember him, a man who knew the value of books despite his modest condition. He stared at Alex with a new look. You were that skinny boy, fascinated with Jack London. And you were very kind to allow me to handle a first edition, completed Alex, the memory vividly returning. It was one of the most important days of my life. It changed my perspective on what I could achieve. A silence laden with meaning filled the room. Martha, who observed the scene from the door, smiled discreetly. What happened to your father? Harold finally asked. He passed away 5 years ago. Cancer. But he lived long enough to see me graduate from Harvard and start Rodriguez Ventures. Alex hesitated before continuing. Our first project was restoring a small bookstore in East Boston, where I grew up. Today, it's a cultural center offering reading programs for immigrant children. Harold walked to the window, observing the movement on Newbury Street. And now you want my store, he said, his voice softer than before. The same boy that I treated condescendingly a few days ago, without recognizing. That doesn't matter now, replied Alex. What matters is the future of Wellington Books. Why do you care so much? Asked Harold, turning to face him. Because places like this are disappearing, answered Alex with conviction. And when they go, they take something irreplaceable with them. It's not just about books or business, it's about preserving spaces where people can discover new ideas, connect with the past, find inspiration. Harold looked long at the photographs on the wall, the legacy of 3 generations. Then at Martha, his faithful work companion for decades. Finally, at Alex, the unlikely savior destiny had placed in his path. I need time to think, he said at last. Alex nodded, understanding. He left his card on the table and headed to the door. Before leaving, he turned one last time. You asked me why I care so much. The truth is, for a boy from East Boston, son of immigrants, Wellington Books represented the first time I felt welcome in the world of real books. I don't want other boys like me to lose that opportunity. With those words, he was gone, leaving Harold with much to reflect upon. A week later, rain fell heavily over Boston, transforming the streets into mirrors of water that reflected the city lights. Inside Wellington Books and Antiques, Harold worriedly observed the multiplying leaks, threatening his precious collection. Martha ran from one side to the other, strategically positioning buckets. The roof has finally given way, she stated, exhausted. We need to call someone urgently. Harold nodded, defeated. We can't afford a complete repair, you know that. The phone rang and Martha answered, her expression changing as she listened. It's for you, she said, extending the device to Harold. James. The call was brief. When Harold hung up, he seemed even more downcast. James won't be able to come for Christmas, he explained to Martha. Important project in London. Martha squeezed her friend's shoulder in silent solidarity. At this moment, the front door opened and Alex entered, shaking his umbrella. Mr. Wellington, he greeted, immediately noticing the chaotic state of the store. Problems with the roof? Nothing that should concern you, replied Harold, trying to maintain dignity. Alex looked up, assessing the damage. I have a friend who specializes in historical building restoration. I can call him to take a look. No obligation. Before Harold could refuse, Martha intervened. That would be great, Mr. Rodriguez. Thank you very much. Alex made some calls, and in less than an hour, a middle-aged man named Robert arrived to examine the roof. After a careful inspection, the diagnosis was serious. Compromised structure requiring complete restoration. How much? Asked Harold, fearing the answer. Robert mentioned a figure that made the old bookseller pale. The building has historical value, explained Robert. We can't simply replace. We need to restore according to preservation guidelines. When Robert left, Harold sat heavily in his favorite armchair, suddenly looking older and more fragile. It's over, he murmured. There's no way to continue. Alex, who observed the scene with genuine concern, approached. Mr. Wellington, Harold, I know you're reluctant to accept my proposal, but think of this as a partnership, not a surrender. Wellington Books will survive, just in a different form. Harold raised his eyes, meeting Alex's sincere gaze. Do you know how much my father paid for this store in 1967? $25,000. It seemed like a fortune at the time. He laughed without humor. And now you offer millions, and yet I feel like I'm losing everything. You're not losing, insisted Alex. You're ensuring that the legacy continues. At this moment, the bell on the door announced the arrival of a customer, a young mother with a girl of approximately 10 years, both soaked by the rain. Excuse us, said the woman. Can we shelter here for a moment? The storm caught us by surprise. Of course, Martha responded kindly. Make yourselves at home. The girl, with curious eyes, soon began to explore the shelves, marveled by the quantity of books. Harold observed her with a growing smile, recognizing in her the same enchantment he had seen in so many children over the decades, including a young Alex many years ago. Mum, can I buy a book? Asked the girl, holding an illustrated copy of fairy tales. The mother hesitated, checking the price tag. Maybe next month, sweetheart. Now we need to save for your school supplies. Harold exchanged a look with Alex, then stood up and approached the girl. You know what? We have a special promotion today. Customers who come to shelter from the rain get a free book. The child's eyes shone with excitement as she hugged the book against her chest. It's true, Mom. The mother began to protest, but Harold was firm. I insist. Consider it as a thank you for brightening our rainy day. After the departure of the mother and daughter, now with a carefully wrapped book protected from the rain, Harold turned to Alex. If I accept your proposal, I need guarantees. Guarantees that moments like this will continue to happen. You'll have it in writing, assured Alex. Wellington Books will continue to be a place where children discover the magic of books, regardless of their circumstances. In the following weeks, the transaction was completed with terms that satisfied both parties. The official announcement about the new administration was made with the promise of maintaining the essence and tradition of the bookstore, while adapting it to face the challenges of the 21st century. Wellington Books and Antiques closed for 3 months for complete renovations. When it reopened, the exterior maintained its classic charm, with the restored sign proudly shining. Inside, subtle changes made the space more welcoming and functional. Improved lighting, climate control system for proper preservation of rare books, and a small cafe area on the second floor with a view of Newbury Street. On reopening day, a line formed outside. Alex and Harold stood side by side to cut the symbolic ribbon. Nervous? Asked Alex. Harold adjusted his tie, dressed in his best suit for the occasion. Strangely, no. I feel as if a weight has been removed from my shoulders. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. Alex gave a brief speech about the importance of preserving cultural institutions, and Harold shared memories of his 40 years at the helm of the business. And now, concluded Harold, I have the pleasure of introducing the new owner and director of Wellington and Rodriguez Books and Antiques, someone who understands the true value of what we have here, Alejandro Rodriguez. Alex, surprised by the mention of his name in the store's new title, shook Harold's hand with genuine emotion. The old bookseller had insisted on this last-minute change, symbolically recognizing the new partnership. As customers entered to explore the renovated bookstore, Harold noticed a Latin American family near the door, hesitant to enter. The father, wearing simple work clothes, held the hand of a boy of approximately 12 years, who looked in wonder at the display windows. Harold approached them with a warm smile. Welcome to Wellington and Rodriguez. May I help you find something special today? The father seemed surprised by the reception. We're just looking. My son loves books. Then you're in the right place, replied Harold, inviting them in. Let me show you our adventure section. We have some first editions of Jack London that are true treasures. From a corner of the store, Alex observed the scene with satisfaction. Martha approached, holding a tray with champagne flutes for the celebration. "It seems old Harold finally learned the lesson about not judging by appearances," she commented, offering a glass to Alex. "We all learn something in this process," replied Alex, raising the toast. "To Wellington and Rodriguez, and to second chances." Martha smiled, joining the toast. "You know what's most ironic? Your father would come here occasionally, years ago. Harold never knew, but he bought books for the East Boston Community Library. He said he wanted the neighborhood children to have access to the same world he discovered here." Alex remained silent for a moment, absorbing this revelation. Then, with a serene smile, he observed Harold enthusiastically guiding the family through the corridors of books, exactly as his father had done with him so many years ago. "I think he would be proud," he finally said, "not just of the bookstore, but of the full circle we've just completed." Outside, the newly painted sign shone under the Boston sun. Wellington and Rodriguez, Books and Antiques, preserving the past, inspiring the future since 1936. A new chapter was beginning, based on mutual respect and understanding that transcended appearances, prejudices, and first impressions.